We begin today the Gemara on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis, the Mishnah at the bottom of the Yamud. Zok Teilige Mishnah, Oma Reb Chaye ben Akatzev. Reb Chaye ben Akatzev said, we hadn't quoted before, it was one of the Tanaim, that the different stories we had. Hamoy Nazeh. So he's swearing in the name of the Beis HaMikdash, in the name of the Eibishter that dwells in the Beis HaMikdash, that there was a situation where there was a city that was conquered and his wife was there. What did we learn before? In a situation when you have a city that's conquered, so then any of the women in the city cannot go back to their husbands that are Kayanim. And Reb Chaye ben Akatzev was a Kayan. So, but nevertheless, he said that Leizaza yada mitoich yadi. My hand never budged from my wife's hand. I was always with her. While this was actually in Yerushalayim. From when the Goyim entered into Yerushalayim, until they left. I was always with my wife and she was never touched. Amrulai, the Chachamim said to him, sorry, we can't accept your edus. The rule is, Ein Adam Meid al Atzmai. A person cannot say testimony for himself, even though we had before different leniencies regarding a person that his wife was captured or the city was conquered, but not to say edus for yourself. Tana, in a Braisa we learned about this. Bafal Pikain, nevertheless, even though they allowed him to live with his wife, but still, Yichid lo bayis b'chatzeirei. He designated a house for her in the same courtyard, and they lived in the same courtyard, even though they didn't live together. But they were careful about this. When she left the courtyard, she would leave first, and before her children left. So she shouldn't be left behind with her husband alone in the same courtyard. And similar to when she would come back in, she would come in after her children. So she should never be there in the same courtyard alone with her husband, because she's not allowed to live with him anymore. So Abaye asks about this. What we see here is a husband and wife that are not allowed to live together, but nevertheless they could be living in the same courtyard. So the question is, are you allowed to do the same when it comes to a grusha? Rashi says we're talking about a kayin that divorced his wife, and a kayin is never allowed to remarry this wife, because once she's a grusha, he can't marry her. So is it also allowed that they can live with her in the same courtyard? So do I say do I say that when a woman was captured and there she can't go back to her husband, the kayin? So we found already special leniencies regarding a shvuya, but regarding a person that divorced his wife, maybe that doesn't apply. But here by a grusha not. Maybe there's no difference. By a grusha there's the same thing, that he can't live with her anymore, can't marry her again, but she could live in the same courtyard as him. Tashema, I'll bring you a rai for this. There's a brayse that says, the Tanya hamegarish asishte, person that divorces his wife. She should not live in the same neighborhood. So the term neighborhood over here actually means not the way we look at neighborhood today, but neighborhood like right near each other, within 3 houses next to each other. That's what Taisu says over here on the top of Chav Ches. V'maya kayin, if this woman is a kayin and he divorced his wife, so she did not get remarried to anybody else yet, she's single right now, she shouldn't even live with him within the same alleyway. So this is even further, even if it's a big alleyway that has much more than 3 houses in it, but she nevertheless should not live even in the same alleyway, because over here, a kayin is not allowed to remarry his grusha. If the husband and wife are living in a small village, so then are they allowed to continue living together in the same village? This story once happened. And the Chachamim said, Kfar Katan, a small village, Nidin Kishchuna. We consider it to be like a little neighborhood, and again, a neighborhood means 3 houses right near each other, and therefore they should not be living together in the same small village. Now, what happens if so a person divorces his wife? So now, who has to move out? Mi nitchem mipnei mi. Who's the one that's going to have to leave the courtyard? Right, the husband says, I want to continue living here. Okay, we'll live in separate houses, but each one wants to continue living there, but they're not allowed. So who has to leave? Tashema, we learned in the Braise, the Tanya. He nitchis mipanov. She's going to have to leave because of the husband. But ve'ein hu nitcha mipanah. He's not going to have to leave because of her. V'mhaisa chatza shalah. If this was her courtyard, she's the owner of this courtyard, so then hu nitcha mipanah. He's going to have to leave because of her. So the question was asked about this. What if this courtyard is owned, a partnership by both of them together? So now the question is, who has to leave here? So the Gemara brings back the same brayse we just said. Toshema, what did it just say in this brayse here? He nitchis mipanov. She's going to have to leave because of him. So what is this case here? When is it saying that she has to leave because of him? Is the Braisa saying this halacha when he's the owner of the courtyard? Pshita. That's obvious. If he's the owner, why should he have to leave? Of course she has to leave. So that's not the chiddush of the Braisa. So what are you telling me? It's speaking about her courtyard and it's saying that she has to leave. But what Tanya, the Braisa then says, if it's her courtyard, he has to leave. So it's not speaking about her courtyard either. Elalav, don't you think, what is the chiddush of the Braisa here when it says that she has to leave? Like the case that we were speaking about, the question we asked, in a case where they both have ownership in this courtyard. So now the question is, who has to leave? And the Braisa is saying that she has to leave. Says the Gemara, not necessarily is this a proof. Dilme, perhaps the case here is the Ager Meger, that they both rented a place in this courtyard. And in such a case, the Braisa is saying that she'll have to leave because of him. But in a case where they both have ownership in this courtyard, so that's much more than just a rental. A rental, it's easier to tell her that she has to leave. But if they both actually have an ownership in the courtyard, who says that she has to leave because of him? So the Gemara asks, so my aviyallah. So how do we resolve this question? Tashema, the Gemara brings a raya from an apostolic where it says, Hine Hashem el taltalach taltala gover. The Abisha says, I will displace you like when I displace a man. So what we see from this pasuk is, Rav Taich, what does this mean? Like you displace a man. Is there any difference between displacing a man or displacing a woman? So Rav says, yes, there is. Tultule de gavre, kashen mideitze. A man that's displaced and has to wander is more difficult than a woman that's misplaced. As that is the nature of things, that's what he said. So therefore, if a man and a woman are living in the same courtyard and they both have a equal ownership here, a partnership, and one has to leave, who's the one that has to leave? The woman has to leave. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braisa regarding this case over here. When you have a husband and wife, they got divorced, and then Lava Heimena b'nichse avia. The husband, when he was still married to her, he borrowed from her from nichse avia. So Rashi says this means from the nichse milug, there are possessions, there are properties that she brings into the marriage that really belong to her, and the husband is just using and eating from it, but then she leaves the marriage, and then she takes all the properties together with her, and now the husband owes her money. Eina nefras, she should not come and collect the money herself. Ela yidei acher. She should send someone else as a shliach to go and collect the money. We don't want the husband and wife to be in any business dealings together, to deal with each other in money matters. You should send someone else to collect the money. Amar Rav Sheishes, so Rav Sheishes said about this, and v'yasal kaman ledina. If they are dealing with one another, and she's trying to collect the money from him, and she's bringing him to a dinteire, we are not going to attend to this, to such a dinteire where the husband and wife that are now divorced come together. Rav Papa goes even further. If we see that husband and wife after they're divorced are doing business together, she's collecting money from him, we put them into a chayrim. Rav Huna Bereider Rav Yeshua Amar, Rav Bereider Rav Yeshua goes a step further. We even go and give them lashes for having such a kind of behavior of still dealing with one another after divorce. Rav Nachman Tana be'Evel Rabasi. We learned in the Braisa of Evel Rabasi. Evel Rabasi is the Braisa of Masechta Smachos, as it's usually known. When are all these precautions here said? If she was divorced from him after they were fully married. So then they're very comfortable with one another from before, so we don't want them after divorce to come and deal with one another. They can come to behave inappropriately. If the divorce was after Edison and they never were with each other, so then she can come and collect her money from the husband herself. Because the husband is not comfortable with her, so we're not afraid anything inappropriate will happen. So there was the story as follows. There was a husband and wife that were married only with Edison, the first stage of marriage, that were later divorced, the Asala Kameda Rava. And they came to Rava for a dinteira. She was trying to collect money from him. Rashi says this is a case of a kohen. So this is even more severe, about a kohen that's not allowed to ever remarry a wife that he divorced. So they came to Rava. Yasser Rav Ada Bar Masna Kamei. Rav Ada Bar Masna was sitting there at this dinteira. So Oiki Rava Shlucha Ben Tayo. So he took Rava and he said, Rava, you're going to have to be this shliach, an agent between the husband and wife for this dinteira. I'm not going to allow husband and wife to come together to this dinteira. Rava will be the shliach for the wife to collect the money.
Rava will be the shliach.
Rava. That's what it says here, right? So Yasser Vada Bar Masna Kamei Oiki Rava Shlucha Ben Tayo. Or Rava placed a shliach between them. Okay, so Rava, is that what it is? Rava placed someone else as a shliach between them. He appointed Ravada bar Masna as a shliach between them. Yeah. Okay, very good. So Amalei Ravada bar Masna. So Ravada bar Masna asked about this. Why is it necessary? V'amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman said, as we learned before, Tana be'evod Abbasi. We learned in the Braisa of Evod Abbasi, as we quoted before, that if it's only from a full marriage, then I say that they shouldn't deal with one another. But if it's from an Eidisin, we're not concerned because they're not comfortable with one another. So why are you placing me as a shliach in between them? Amalei, so Rava said, Kochazinon de kagaisi bahadadi. I can see this husband and wife, that they're too comfortable with one another. So over here, I think it's necessary that there should be a shliach between them. Ikadamri, another version for the story here is, Lo yoikerav shliach ben tayu. This husband and wife that were divorced came to a din Torah, and Rava did not place a shliach between them for the din Torah. So Amalei Ravada bar Masna asked, why not? Why don't you put a shliach between them so they shouldn't be judged together in this din Torah? So Rava answered that it's not necessary. V'amar Rav Nachman. Tana be'evod Abbasi, that we learned in Evod Abbasi that if they were only married with Eidisin, then they're not comfortable with one another, so it's not necessary. Amalei, so Ravada bar Masna said, that's only true if we see that they're not comfortable with one another. Avalhani, look at this husband and wife here. They're not divorced husband and wife. I could see that they're comfortable with one another, so you should place a shliach between them. This Mishnah is interesting. It brings up many different situations where we trust a person to say edus for something that he saw when he was a cotton. It looks like the continuation of the previous Mishnayos is, before we were speaking about saying edus for a woman that got captured, that she did not have a relation with a guy, and there was a leniency about that. We could even trust a eved and a shivcha. So this is another Mishnah discussing certain leniencies regarding edus. So ve'elu ne'man and lahad begoidlon, the following situations, you're believed to say when you're a gadol, edus, mashara b'kaitnan, things that you saw when you were a child. Usually a person can't say that I saw this as a child. You were not kashal edus then. But the following things you are believed. Ne'man adam loima, person's believed to say, zek savyode shel abba, v'zek savyode shel rebbe, v'zek savyode shel achi. Person could look at a shtar, and to verify the signatures of a shtar, he can say, I recognize this is my father's signature, my teacher's signature, or my brother's signature, even though he only saw that signature of his father, teacher, or brother as a child. Or another thing a person's believed to say, Zachara yisi b'plainis, I remember this woman, sheyatza be'enuma ve'reisha parua. At her chasana she had the heinuma. We learned earlier in the Perek, the heinuma was special for a besula. So either it means a certain chuppah or some kind of a headscarf that she wore at the chasana, which indicates that she's a psula. And ve'reisha parua, and also her hair was uncovered. So even though I was only a child at the chasana, I remember this, and we could believe him for this. And also, I remember regarding a certain individual that his father took him out of the school from learning Torah, and where did he take him to? Litboil, to take him to the mikveh, lechel betrumah, so that he can eat trumah. So he's saying edus regarding a certain person that he's a kayan to eat trumah. Another thing, I remember this kayan that he came and we would distribute trumah, and he would come and get trumah. Another thing a person is believed to say that he remembers as a child. I remember regarding this place that it's a beis hapras. Beis hapras is an area that there was a caver there, and then it was plowed over, and they took out the kvarim there, and were afraid that there still could be leftover remnants of the body of the mace that's there. So therefore, with the rabbanon, there's still tumah in that area, and he's believed to say what is the section exactly where it is that it's a beis hapras. And also he's believed to say va'at kana yinu ba'im b'Shabbos, that it's until this place that we used to walk to on Shabbos. This is the Tchum Shabbos. Aval. Okay, so all of these, as we'll see in the Gemara, all of these situations the Gemara brings up that a person is believed to say this edus that he saw as a child are things that require edus only midrabanan, most of them. So therefore, in this case midrabanan, they trusted this child to say this actually has to be an adult now. He's saying this edus now as an adult, but he says that he remembers that he saw this as a child. It's not really a kosher edus to say such a kind of an edus. No, he himself is saying the edus. However, a person will not be believed to say what he remembers as a child, the following. That this individual had a pathway through somebody's field right over here. Or Maimed or Mispad Hayalaplani b'makam hazeh. This is a place that was designated to make a lavaya, to make a hesped for a person in this place. For that you're not believed. Because this is a situation that you're taking away from someone's property. You can't be believed to say edus regarding money matters, to take away from someone's property only based on what you saw as a child. Okay. Zok the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna bereid Rav Yeshua. Rav Huna bereid Rav Yeshua said regarding this Mishnah here, that you have this person that's saying edus regarding what he saw as a child. But for who sheyesh gadol imay. That's only if there's another individual with him that's a gadol that's saying edus with him. So one aid is saying what he saw as a child, but there's another gadol that saw as a gadol together with him. Then he's believed to say this kind of an edus. So there's a discussion in Rishonim regarding this statement here of Rav Huna bereid Rav Yeshua, whether it goes in every single case of the Mishnah or not all of them. So Taisus over here points out that it's only referring to Truma. Regarding allowing a kohen to eat truma based on the edus, you have to have another gadol with him, but not necessarily regarding the other cases. Okay, there's different opinions in the Rishonim about this. Now the Gemara goes back to the first case of the Mishnah. So it mentioned the person is believed to say edus when he saw as a child his father's handwriting, or his teachers, or his brothers. So why does it have to say these three examples? The Mishnah has to give me all three examples here. If it would just say that you believe to say that you recognize your father's signature, I would say mishum d'shchiach gabei. That's because your father's signature, you're always with your father, so you can recognize his signature. Maybe for your teacher's signature, we wouldn't trust him that he saw this as a child. If we would say he recognizes his father's signature, he learns by his teacher, and he has a fear of his teacher, meaning his teacher taught him how to write, and he would look at his teacher's handwriting to see how to write. So therefore maybe that's something he recognizes more. But maybe his father, even though he's always around his father, not necessarily did he pay attention in this way to his father's handwriting. On the other hand, if we would only say these two, the father and the teacher, so then I could say the svaras that we just said, Aviv the Shchiach Gabei, he's believed to say about his father's handwriting because he's always with him. V'Rabbi Disle Eimse, and the teacher because he's afraid of his teacher, he learned from his teacher. Aval Achiv the Lesle, but a brother, not he's always with his brother, not that he learned from his brother, so maybe he doesn't remember so well his brother's handwriting, so you can't say, hey, this is what he saw as a child. Kamash Malan, that's the chiddush here, that even a brother's handwriting, a person is believed to say that he remembers it as a child. Now, what's the reason for this? Kivin the kiyum shtaris midrabanan. The whole idea that you have to verify the signature of a shtar is a requirement midrabanan. Minatayre, we don't have to verify any shtar b'chlal. Hemnu Rabbanan b'Rabbanan. So the Rabbanan trusted this edus because it's their requirement. So therefore they trust him even as a child. There's two opinions there in Taisus how to teach this Gemara. One pshat Taisus says here is we're speaking about a situation where the loive, which is the shtar is being taken out by the malva to collect money from him with the shtar. The loive is admitting that it's a kosher shtar. So in a case where the loive, the borrower, agrees that it's a kosher shtar, so therefore here to verify the shtar is only a requirement minad rabbanan, not minad teira. But in the second pshat Taisus says even in a situation where the loive does not agree, nevertheless minad teira, we're never suspicious that the shtar was forged. Minad teira, we accept the shtar to be valid without any additional verification. So therefore this whole thing is all minad rabbanan. Zachara Yisi, then the Mishnah says a person could say, I remember, but Plainis, Shiyatis Beinuma, Vereisha Perua, that she was a basula, she went out with the hinuma and her hair was uncovered. Why do we believe her? Believe him, that is, to say this edus. This is going to take money. Based on this, she's going to be able to collect money, 200 zuz for the Kesubos, as we learned earlier in this Pedic. My time it. What's the reason for this? The answer is, as we learned already before, Kivin, the Roiv, Nashim, Bisulis Nisis. Most women, when they get married as a basula. So therefore, Gili Milsa Ba'almahu, saying this kind of an edus, that she is a basula, we don't really have to rely 100% on this edus. We can rely on this roiv. And therefore, this edus that he's saying is just to publicize the matter that this is the way it was, and that people should know 100% and no one should doubt it. Therefore, it's not really a full edus. Then it said in the Mishnah, that we're trusting him to say that this person is a kohen, he could eat truma, because I remember his father took him out of school to taivel him to eat truma. How do we know that if he was eating truma, that he's a kohen? V'dilme evet koyenu, maybe he was the slave of a kohen, and the halacha is a slave of a kohen could eat truma from the house of the kohen. Says the Gemara, so this would be a proof to what Rabbi Shua ben Levi said. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, a person is not allowed to learn Torah with his slave, Evet Kanani. So over here, this person is saying a testimony that I remember that the father took him out of school where he was learning Torah to go on Taiva. So he's not only saying that he ate Truma, but he's also saying that he took him out of the Beis HaSefer where he was learning Torah. So that proves that he wasn't an Evet. Fragt the Gemara, v'loi, an Evet Kanani can't learn Torah, but v'atanya, we learned in the Braisa as follows. Lovo heimenu rabbi, a teacher, a master. A master that borrowed money from his Evet Kanani, even though he doesn't have to borrow the money from him. Whatever an Evet owns belongs to his master. But an Evet, a master that's treating his Evet in this way, that he allows him, he gives him his allowance, and he then borrows money from him, which is unusual. Or a master that appoints his Evet, his Evet Kanani to be an apotropis, which means he gave him over all of the properties, that he should take care of it, and he's in charge, he's a full manager of everything on his own. Also an unusual thing. Or we see this Evet Kanani that's putting on tefillin. He's not obligated to put on tefillin. He's chayv in mitzvahs like a woman, but he doesn't usually put on tefillin. He comes in shul and he's reading from the Torah. He reads 3 psukim. All of these things that we see a Evet doing is not an indication for the fact that his teacher, or his master rather, freed him. Because it's possible that even though his master is borrowing money from him and he's treating him in this way and he's even learning Torah, but nevertheless it doesn't mean that he's free. He still could be an Evet. So we see here clearly that even an Evet could be learning Torah. So if you have someone saying a testimony that I know that this person, when he was a cotton, he was in the cheder and his father took him out to go eat truma, that doesn't prove that he's not an Evet. And says the Gemara, it's not the same thing. Hossam, over there in this Braisa, the reason why we say he's still an Evet, the Ikri Evet Midaitag. Over there, people still call him an Evet, and the person that hears people referring to him as an Evet doesn't mind it. So we can see that he's still an Evet. Ki kamrinan, over here, what are we saying? The kanag bei minig banim. We see that the father treats this person like his child. It's not that he's learning Torah one time. He goes to cheder, he learns Torah, and nobody calls him an Evet. So it's clear that he was not an Evet. So in such a case, it's a clear testimony that he's a kohen. Right. You can rely on drive.
Yeah.
Okay, no. The Gemara here says, minig banim. It's clear that he was learning in cheder, so he's not, no one calls him an Evet. So what did it say? This person is trusted to say the edus of what he saw as a child, that this person could eat truma. So the Gemara clarifies, litboil lechol betrume. What are we talking about? Betrume derabanan. That we're going to trust this kind of an edus, that a person saw this as a child, only for him to be able to eat trume midrabanan. Whether it's a truma in chutz laaretz or it's a truma of the peiris of a tree, which are only midrabanan. Because again, this is a kind of an edus. We're trusting this is not a real edus. He saw this as a child. So only for truma midrabanan, we're going to trust him. Then it said also that the person can say testimony that I know this person is a kohen. I saw him as a child. What happened? That I saw that he would come and get the truma when it was being distributed at the storehouse. So the question is, how do you know this? Vidilma Evet Kainu. Again, the question is, maybe he was an Evet of a kohen that went to pick up the truma. So says the Gemara, Tanan, in our Mishnah we learned here, Kamanda Omar, according to the opinion that says, Ein chelkin truma le'evet, that we don't give out truma for an Evet, even an Evet of a kohen, he can't come and pick up the truma himself. Ella im kein rabbi yimai, unless his master comes along with him. The Tanya, so we learned the machlokes about this in a Braisa. We had this in the Gemara and Yevamos as well. Ein chalkin truma le'eved, we do not distribute truma for an eved, elam kain rabbi yimai, unless his master comes with him. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, this is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yaisi says, no, yachalu sheyaymar, the eved could come and say, im kain ani, if I'm a kain, tnuli b'shvalatzmi, so you should give the truma for me, for myself. But even vim eved kain ani, even if I'm only the eved of a kain, tnuli b'shval rabbi, so give me the truma for my master. I'm picking up the truma for my master. So Rabbi Yaisi held he could come and pick up the truma himself. So Bimkaimesh Rabbi Yehuda, so the Gemara now explains the difference between these two opinions here. Bimkaimesh Rabbi Yehuda, in the place of Rabbi Yehuda, Hayumailin mitrume leyuchsin. When they saw someone that was picking up truma, they would use that as a basis to now elevate his status, that he becomes a kohen, that we consider him to be a kohen that's miyuchas. So if so, that's why Rabbi Yehuda said, you can't allow an evet to come and pick up this truma himself. However, in the place of Rabbi Yaisi, loy hayamaylan mitruma leyuchsin. they would not elevate the status of a person that collected the truma to be considered to be a kain miyuchas. So therefore, there's no problem of allowing the Eved to pick up this truma himself. We're not going to use that as the basis to say that there's a kain. So Tanya, in Abraisi, we learned about this machlekes. Amar Rabbi Elazar be Rabbi Yesi. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yesi, said, Miyamai, my entire life, lo ya'adati, I never said testimony. Pam achas, one time ya'adati, I said an edus, v'helu eved l'kohuna al pi. And based on my edus, they took a person that's an eved, and they elevated him to be on the status of a kayin. The Gemara is soon going to say the story that happened. But the Gemara interjects and asks over here a question. Could this be Helo Solkadaitach? Is it possible that based on the Eidus of such an individual, such a great tzaddik, and he said Eidus, so the Eibishter brought such a terrible thing that his Eidus caused that they took an Eved that considered him to be a Kayin? Why not? It can't be this happened. Now, if when it comes to any animals that belong to tzaddikim, maybe takala al yadam, the Eibishter does not allow anything bad to happen, even with a behema of a tzaddik, that it should not eat what it's not supposed to. So tzaddikim atzman lekol shekem. Most definitely a tzaddik himself, the Eibishter will not bring any takala to a tzaddik. So such a thing couldn't have happened. Ella, the Gemara explains, bikshu lahalis evet l'kohuna al pi. What he said was, I said this Eidus, and they were almost going to do this. They were about to elevate the status of this person that was an Eved to be a Kayin according to me. Because what happened? Chaza ba'asre de Rabbi Yesi. I saw in the place where Rabbi Yesi was, where this person came and collected the Truma by himself. And then va'azal ba'asre ba'asre de Rabbi Yehuda. And then I went and said Eidus in the place of Rabbi Yehuda to say that, look, this person collected the truma by himself, and in the place of Rabbi Yehuda, they would elevate the status of a person that collected the truma by himself to be a kayin. So they were almost going to accept my edus in the place of Rabbi Yehuda that he's considered to be a kayin. So that's the michshol that almost came out from what from the edus that he said.
How did he collect in the place of Rabbi Yesi?
Because in the place of Rabbi Yesi, they allowed them to collect themselves, right? Because Rabbi Yesi said that we're not going to be ma'ilel l'kon al piv. So over there, he saw him taking himself. And if he would have said the Eidus in the place of Rabbi Yesi, they would have known that they can't elevate a status to a Kayin. But then he went to the place of Rabbi Yehuda, where over there they knew that a Eved does not take himself, and they were almost going to elevate him to the status of being a Kayin. We had this in Gemara in Yevamis as well, and over there Tosfos said that this whole piece about the behemoths of tzaddikim, that they will not be nichshal, Tosfos takes out this whole piece. And the reason is, there's a machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos. This concept is brought up in the Gemara many different times. And there's a machlokes always between Rashi and Tosfos about this. Tosfos holds this concept that the Gemara says that a tzaddik is not nichshal, and even a behemoth of a tzaddik is not nichshal. That's only b'midi da'achila, only when it comes to the isser of eating. Whatever isser it is, that a tzaddik will never be nichshal to eat something that's not kosher. But in any other kind of an isser, it's not necessarily said. Rashi, however, the Rebbe points out in the Sikha that according to Rashi, it doesn't matter. In any isser, we see here, Rashi does not take out this gersa. And Rashi is always guided this thing that the Eibishter will not bring a michshol to a tzaddik in any way whatsoever. And the Rebbe brings there in the Sikha the story that it says about the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe, when he was on his way when they took him to go to prison, so what happened on Erev Shabbos? The wheels of the wagon broke because the Eibishter will not allow a michshol to happen to a tzaddik that he should have to travel on Shabbos. Elamai, the Rebbe says the chiddush with the Alter Rebbe is even more than what the Gemara says here, because according to what the Gemara said here, the wheel of the wagon should have broke a moment before Shabbos, so he shouldn't have to travel before Shabbos. By the Alter Rebbe, it happened much earlier in the day to give him time to prepare for Shabbos. That was an even bigger chiddush than what the Gemara says here. Okay, so let's continue inside. So the Gemara, the next thing it said in the Mishnah was that a person could say testimony of what he saw as a child. Beis haprasu. He's saying regarding a certain area exactly where is the Beis hapras. So again, a Beis hapras is a place that there was kvarim there, but they plowed it out, but was still afraid that there could be there bones and leftover things that could bring tumah. So midrabanan, it's a place of tumah. As the Gemara here says, my time, why is he believed to say what he saw there as a child? Because Beis hapras derabanan. The tumah in a Beis hapras is only midrabanan. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, when a person walks in a Beis hapras, menapeyach adam Beis hapras v'hoilach. Person could blow at the ground ahead of him and walk there in this area, and we're not afraid that he's going to become tameh. Right? The point is, in a Beis hapras, there could be two ways how you can become tameh. One is if you touch any bone of a dead body, you can become tameh. Or if your body creates a oihel, like a tent over what you're walking on, you could also become tameh. Well, if your body like bends over and you create a tent over it, so then you could become tameh. But they're not the same. In order to become tameh when you touch something, so the bone that you touch has to be at least the size of a barley. But when you bend over, it has to be a larger size. The size of a barley, there will not be a tum of oil. So there, when you're menapeyach, when you're blowing and you can see in front of you what's going on, we're not afraid that you touched it and you'll be able to walk there. Rav Yehuda barami mishmei de Rav Yehuda Amar, another leniency regarding the Beis HaPras shenidish, a Beis HaPras that many people stepped over it already, toy. It's already considered to be tar because we rely on the fact that whatever was left over there is already too small to cause any. My time, because even if there's a small bone that was the size of a barley, it was already stepped over, it was crushed, and therefore is no source of tumah there anymore. The next thing it said, persons believe to say that it is until here that we would walk on Shabbos. This is the tchum of Shabbos. Kosovar. So what do we see here? That the Tan of our Braisa holds Tchumin the Rabbana. The Issa to walk in the Tchum Shabbos out of the Tchum is only with the Rabbana. This is an argument that's brought many times in the Gemara between Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbana. And Rabbi Akiva says the Tchum Shabbos of 2,000 Amos is Min HaTorah. But over here, this mission is telling us that the Tchum is with the Rabbana. However, you're not believed to say what you saw as a child, that someone had a pathway here, or this is a place that was designated to eulogize people here. Why is this something you're not believed to say you saw as a child? Because this is going to be taking money out of someone's possession. You're not believed to say you need a proper edus for this to take it out of his possession. Other details regarding what a person is believed to say as a child. Persons believed to say, Kach amali Abba. This is what my father told me as a child. Mishpacha zu tahira. This family is pure. Mishpacha zu tmeya. This family is impure. So the Gemara clarifies what does it mean, purity or impurity regarding a family. Tmeya tahira, tahira or tmeya salkadaitach. If purity and impurity regarding a family, usually purity and impurity is regarding an individual. What does it mean regarding a family? Ella, it's a bit different. Mishpacha zu ksheira, mishpacha zu psula. He's believed to say regarding a family, whether it's a kosher family, the yichus, whether it's kosher or not kosher. So the Rishonim speak about this. It's not so pashut. How exactly do we believe a person, what he heard as a child to say regarding the yichus of a family? So the Rishonim say that it's speaking about, one of the pshatim of the Rishonim is it's speaking about a case that we have two families and we know one of them, there was a mixture of psul. We're just not sure which one. So in such a case where we know that there was a psul in one of them, we're just not sure which one, then we could trust this person to say what he remembers he heard from his father. And also, we believed this person to say what he saw as a child. We ate a kitzatza, and the Gemara is soon going to explain what this kitzatza is, by the wedding of Bas Ploni to Ploni. Okay, let's wait. The Gemara will explain exactly what this is. And also, a person is believed to say what he did as a child. I remember as a child, we used to bring the challah and the other gifts that have to be given, and we gave it to this person as a kain. Now, the Braisa says, Al Yidei Atzmai. He's believed to say this if he himself delivered the challah or the gifts for the kain. Avalai Al Yidei Acher. But he's not believed to say that someone else went and delivered this challah or these gifts to the kain. Now the Braisa continues, but the kula, in all of these situations that we said, that a person's believed to say what he saw as a child, but if he was a guy, v'nizgayet, and then he became a ger, or eved, he was an eved v'nishtachrer, and he became freed, ein amanim. They're not believed to say, as a guy I saw so and so, and now when he's a yid, he can believe about that. Yeah. And then the Braisa also says what we had in the Mishnah, and a person is not believed to say regarding what he saw as a child, regarding a pathway or a place that was used to eulogize in this place, because you can't take money out of someone's possession with such an edus. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika says, they are believed. So the Gemara immediately explains when Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika says they are believed regarding what was he saying this? Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, what was he going on? Is he going on the very last case regarding establishing the property? If someone else has a right for a pathway here, how could he say this? With this edus, he's taking money out of someone's possession. And you can't do that unless you have a proper edus. Elo areisha. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broike is going back on what it said before in the Mishnah. What did it say before? That a guy that became a ger, or an evet that became freed. So he's not believed to say what he saw before his gerus. On this, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broike oime nemanim. Just like we believe an adult to say about what he saw as a child, we believe a guy to say, or actually a yid now to say what he saw as a guy. So the Gemara explains the machlekes. B'maika mifliki. What's the basis of the argument here? Tanakama's savar. The Tanakama's opinion is kivin David kichavimu. Since he's a guy, lo yavetayik. So as a guy, the things that he saw then, he wasn't particular about it. So when he comes and he says things that he saw as a guy, he wasn't particular about what he saw, so he can't say this about this. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broike savar. However, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broike's opinion is kivin the daiteli igure. As we see, he became a ger. So since, as a guy, he already had in mind that he's becoming a ger, made the kavadayik, he was more particular of what he saw, to be honest about what he's testifying. Now going back to what we had before in the Braise, that it said that a person could say edus that he saw as a child by someone's chasana, that there was a ketzatza. What is this ketzatza? My ketzatza. The Tan Rabbanas, we learned in the Braise as follows. Ketzad ketzatza. What's this thing of a ketzatza? Echad min ha'achim. If there's a brother, one of the brothers, Shemnasa Isha She'ena Iganesla, he went and got married to a woman that's not appropriate for him. He's not allowed to marry her. Let's say a Kayin, he got married to a Grusha or whatever, any person that got married to a wife that he's not allowed. So now the family wants to make it clear of what happened there. They don't want to have anything to do with him. So what do? Ba'am b'nei mishpacha, the other people of the family come, u'mevi'in chavis melei pedis. They bring a barrel full of fruits. And they break open this barrel in the middle of a big street, and everyone should see this. And they announce for everyone, Achenu Beis Yisrael, our brothers from the Eden. Shimu Achenu, listen, our brother. Shimu, listen. Achenu Pliny, our brother, this individual. Nasa Isha Sheina Ganeslai. He married a wife that's not appropriate for him. We're afraid Shema Yisarev Zarev Bizarenu, that maybe his children will be mixed with ours. And we don't want that our entire family should lose their proper yichus because of what our brother did. So, Bayu, Ukhulachem Dugma, take over here an example, or Rashi says, take really a sign that this should be remembered for all future generations, L'daitis, Shalayis Arev Zarev Bizarenu, that his children will not be mixed with ours, and Vizuhi Ktsatsa. This is what they refer to as a Ktsatsa, which is a derogatory term, and this is this derogatory sign that they made it should be remembered what their brother did. Shatinik Neman Lahai Dalel. And even an adult that comes and he saw it, he remembers that this was done as a child, he's believed to say testimony about such a kind of a thing. Hadron Allah Ha'isha Shenesar Malah. This is the conclusion of the second Perek of Masechet Kesubos.